Hey folks, 10/25/2014, 6:03 p.m. here on a Saturday evening, and as I mentioned before, I really don't have the time to do the things that I would like to be able to do in regards to this channel, but what I could do possibly is just this. In most situations, I'm just speaking from the heart and just kind of going with the flow, and usually of late, especially that when I have been doing these things, it's been based on a certain feeling or idea that comes to me, and there's very little preparation in regards to that whatsoever. In fact, in most cases there's none. If anything at all, I'm writing things down according to what I know within the moment in order to summarize the idea, and then I use that as a point of reference. And usually if I'm reading from something, I let you know that I'm doing that, but in most cases it's just the idea itself, and then I just go with it. In some cases I don't really stay on track with that particular idea. It just opens up different areas to be able to talk about things related and a broader sense of what that is needed to be communicated. What I mean by what is needed to be communicated, because things are being said all the time through our eternal nature that is to remind us to have our sense of intent and focus to be in a particular area in order for us to be grounded here. Now, I ran across a particular video by Bashar. For those that are not familiar with that individual, that's a particular individual. Let me see if you have to hold on a second here. I can't remember certain things, so especially when I'm not really well acquainted with let's see here. No, I can't find his name. First name Daryl. I don't know his last name. Bashar is the entity that is channeled through this individual. Yeah, and as far as I can see, and I've listened to both so-called individuals speak, the personalities are very similar. As far as the mannerisms and everything, I guess that would be natural in respect to the idea of the vessel in which is being used for the channeling is going to emit a certain personality that is very similar because of driving in the same car, so to speak. It's going to perform a certain way, right? Okay, so anyhow, as you know, I don't subscribe to the idea of channeling because I don't like the idea of moving into the passenger seat and allowing another entity to come through me and speak its philosophy. I don't care how grand or how true it may be. I see that as being not an experience I wish to share within this incarnation. Perhaps I've done it before in some other lifetimes, but not in this one, because I don't need to, for a lot of things, for a lot of reasons why we do certain things within the incarnation that we're in, this present one, and certain things do not fit with us. We feel it feels off to us. We don't need it, in other words, right? We have that strong, repelling sense, I don't need that. And sometimes that moves into a biasness, and it moves into a doctrine, and it moves into a way of philosophy. But the truth is, what's really going on is that you've been there, you've done that, you no longer need that anymore. You've moved, you graduated to a different stage, you're transcending and moving along, so you have no need to access or be part of that anymore. In regards to my understanding in relationship to my eternal nature in the universe, comes from outward sources to a certain point. Those outward sources are reflections, which allows me to go deeper within me. Let me rephrase that. I'm not gaining or using or regurgitating what other people are saying. I'm seeing it as a reminder. It's like someone coming and tapping you on the shoulder and say, didn't we come in the store to get bananas? Oh, that's right. You follow with what I'm saying? It's a reminder to me. And when I do that, I contemplate, then my intent is focused. To go back to the analogy of going to the store and getting bananas. Now I'm going to get bananas. Now it becomes more specific. I will go to the bananas and I will see if they're, first of all, do they have any organic bananas? Very specific. Now, they have organic bananas. Now I look for bananas that have brown spots all over them. I know that's ripe. And I know that when I eat bananas, I only eat a few of them, so I will probably only get about 3 bananas. I won't get a whole bunch. because I'll usually eat a banana one day, then the next day I'll eat another banana. Within 3 days I've eaten those bananas. They don't go to waste, and they're ripe, so I can eat them anytime that I want to. Specifics. I contemplate, and the focus becomes very specific in regards to what the intent is in relationship to my banana shopping. Same thing in regards to the eternal nature of who you are and your soul's journey, or plural, soul's journey within this construct or creation. The same thing. All you need is reminders. You need to take the time and come to realize internally that understanding. As I mentioned before, memories do not come with pictures in your head. People think, I need to remember. When they remember something, they think that pictures is what is necessary in order to be able to recall. That is an affirmation to what has occurred with you, so-called. No. Wrong. Pictures in relationship to this vessel and this body has a lot to do with mind, energy, and imagination as well. You don't rely on things like that. What you do is that you bypass this vessel and you go into the emotional. There's various aspects of the body, as you know, and one part of it is an emotional aspect. That emotional aspect or emotional body allows you to tap in. It is not the place or well in which you jump into and then swim around and you receive the information. No, the emotional body is but a tapping source to going to source. You bypass all that. The emotional body connects you to the feelings that you have, which are your deeper feelings, which allow you to connect to your eternal path or soul's journey, and therefore the information that you need to know in relationship to that journey. That's where my understanding comes from. That's where your understanding truly comes from. That's where it happens. Now, this is the way that I explain it. Perhaps you get with what I'm saying. Perhaps you don't. There's other ways to explain it in which whatever works for you allows you to go into that place. That's what works for you. But that's where you draw from that source understanding and reintegration of your soul's journey within this construct or creation. Now, Bashar, this individual, this entity, the information that I've listened to a few things here of late, and in the process of listening to this information that's provided, a lot of it is good if you understand that your eternal nature is what he's referencing. When you think too much about the physicality and your personification or your incarnation as being the framework of, or reference to reality, you're going to miss the point. You're not going to understand. And what most people do is that they don't understand that part of themselves, as I've mentioned. Therefore, they are inclined to rely on their mind energy and their physical experience to interpret what is being said. In most cases, it is completely wrong. Now, in this one particular situation, Bashar is talking about the idea of cannabis, because the question is asked about cannabis. The woman that's asking the question about, eating holistically and raw food diet and different things like that, and raising her vibration and then the consumption, she's trying to figure out balance for herself. She's trying to understand certain things and what's the best path for her to take. She's trying to figure things out for herself. So she's looking to get a mirror's understanding of that based on the response she gets from this entity, Bashar. So she mentions the idea of cannabis being a lower vibrational substance, as well as a combination of that with alcohol. And Bashar says, cannabis is not a low vibrational substance. And the whole crowd goes, yay! They're all happy about the idea of cannabis, Now, I have my views on marijuana, and as well as anything in relationship to what, grows naturally on the planet. Now, like I said, there's certain things within your lifetime, within your incarnation, you do not have any need for. And when you dabble into it, you do it, you get a negative reaction to it. And it's not really a negative reaction as much as it's a repelling reaction that can be explained in many different ways. Mainly the vibration of the substance in which you are now consuming or taking in is something that you are now aligning yourself to by the consumption of it, and therefore you're vibrating with on that same level. And if it is contrary to what you need or what is going on with you, there's going to be a repelling factor. And some people have, quote unquote, experiences that are not so enjoyable or reflective. I've had both in regards to that substance because I've done it, and I've done it several times. And early on, depending on the type of cannabis that I had done, I would get a certain response because of the THC. Now, depending on what type it was, the response I would get would vary. But there came a time where I consumed it and it was like going backwards. I went back to do it, and it was a very unpleasant experience, to say the least. Okay? There's certain things that you don't do if you're sensitive to what you're doing yourself. You don't need to go outside of yourself for anything. You don't need any substance to help you. Only reason why that substance can help you is because your focus of intent is completely off, and you have no way to focus yourself. What marijuana can do is that it can ground you in order for you to see that there is more. That's what it does. That's what it teaches you. That's what it can teach you. Doing it consistently, like any substance, is no good. It builds up toxicity within the body. It causes ill results in the long term. Some stuff can do, depending on what substance it is, can be more drastic than others. And I'm not talking about substances like that are refined and stuff like that. I'm talking about natural things. Ayahuasca, the combination of ayahuasca and using those types of things, they take you to a different level. They take you to the next level. But why? You don't need that. The truth is, you don't need that. Because all it is it's like going into the grocery store, like I said, tapping you on the shoulder. Didn't you come in here for bananas? That's what I'm referring to, my friends. That's what I'm talking about. Any of this stuff, going outside of yourself for it, just doesn't mean it always is, can become a reminder for you. But once you come to understand what that reminder is, you don't need to be reminded again unless you lose your way. And the only way that you lose your way is if you refuse to receive that understanding of reminding what your soul's journey is, and you end up in this cycle or loop. That's what leads you down the area of, addictions and so forth, is because you've been so far removed from your path and your understanding and your unity within self that you go outside of yourself and you find yourself becoming consumed with various things only because you're looking to cover up the feeling that you have of being out of sync. So anyhow, actually I was going to get into this and point out how when Bashar said, cannabis is not a low vibrational, substance, that the whole crowd goes, yay, yay, But when he gets into the truth about what we are, he doesn't go into detail. He's kind of vague sometimes. But when he goes into the understanding that needs to come across for the reason why the question is brought up, people's yay factor doesn't exist. Where cannabis happened, and the word cannabis is it's as like it's a permission for all of us to get high, and stupid. It's really stupid, seriously. And that's because I say that because people refuse to see themselves for what they truly are. They'd rather be on the trip than know what their destination is. And you need to know both. So I'm looking down in the comment section and they go, how can a person get high and not do the substance? It's a legitimate question if you're asking from the perspective of just mind energy and your body, experience. It's not about being high. That's the real answer. We're not talking about high, we're talking about vibrational state and understanding and balance and wholeness. That's what I mentioned the last video, that the internet has so much going on that for me, as I become overwhelmed when I see things, because it's sort of like when I'm talking to somebody that's real sciencey, real science-minded. They get so, not everybody, but when it's a religious science-minded individual. You know what I'm saying? I get very disturbed, and I have to remove myself from the situation because they want to, just like my experiences in the past with extremely zealot religious people that had a viewpoint and wanted to argue that viewpoint, it does the same thing to me. It overwhelms me, and it's like, all I want to do is just get away from it. Whatever they feel and whatever they see is what they want to embrace. But I look at them and I go, once you leave your vessel, you're going to know, not enough, but you're going to realize what you've been doing is chasing your tail like the proverbial dog trying to catch its tail. And while I'm talking to them, I'm thinking that. Because that's the only thing that grounds me, because I understand that they just don't understand. There's no way that they're going to get with what I'm saying. When I say the inward reality is the result of the outward reality. The double slit experiment in quantum physics. Look at that example as observation is what maintains this holographic experience. Because this construct is frequency, there is different aspects of density to each frequency state, or we call those densities, and then within those densities you have multi-aspects of those frequencies, which is called, this is the way I view it, dimensions. But it's all related in regards to being frequency, and those frequencies manifest form according to agreement, and that agreement is the consciousness of those that are participating as co-creators, meaning all of us, within the construct or creation that we're in. And so when I communicate these ideas for people that are locked into a certain viewpoint, they cannot understand it, because what they're doing is they're creating a block for themselves, for the same reason why people become addicted to certain substances. It's a stubbornness to not wish to engage in their right path for themselves. Now, intellectually understanding something and internally understanding something in regards to your eternal nature is two different things. And it's difficult at times to be able to communicate the idea of how to access your eternal nature in order to understand. Because the eternal nature, once you understand, once you see that, once you experience that and you realize that, you understand that consciousness is constantly shifting. And it's based on intent and observation and focus and interest, such as the double slit experiment. When you find that it's being observed, those particles or those atoms passing through the slits, when they're being observed, it behaves a certain way and it becomes more dense. It's more predictable in that respect in regards to form. When it's not being observed, it doesn't take on that construct. In fact, it now becomes and behaves like a particle wave, just like a light wave. So the inward reality is the reason for the outward reality. We as immortal spiritual beings, and that's the other thing people don't get, they don't think that they're immortal spiritual beings because they have no memory. Their memory's been removed, so they don't have that connection. It's there, that connection's there, but they don't know how to access it because they've been told and they've been taught and indoctrinated to believe a different set of variables in regards to reality. So they don't refer to that, but consciousness is constantly in flux, always in flux. Like the double slit experiment, the idea of the focus and the reason for the focus of intent, the affections, the interest that is focused on what is being observed at the time changes accordingly to that frequency and that intent and that interest and that desire. Truly. Now, within this dense frequency experience, does it happen like that? It can happen like that, manifesting wise, or what we see as within form. It can take place if you are connected and have enough creational energy flowing through you in order to change it, because that is what agreement is. Agreement is the multiplicity of consciousness as a whole, separated, or should I say subdivided, that when it comes together to focus on a particular thing in order for it to be manifested, that is agreement, and therefore that energy concentrated of creational energy comes in and forms it. And it can happen when you have that going on quickly, just like that. So anyhow, I was going to get into other things and I went into a different direction. Hopefully what I said made sense to you and was helpful, and it inspired you to ask some questions, and perhaps you just may comment and we can have somewhat of a dialogue concerning that. Anyhow, peace everybody. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.